Well, hey there, and welcome to AP US History with Lennox. I'm Lennox, and today we are in the middle of time period 3, which takes us from 1754 to 1800. And our topic today is topic 3.7, the Articles of Confederation. Now, you might not be aware of this, but the U.S. Constitution that governs our country today was not our original Constitution nor our government. In July of 1776, when we declared our independence, the Continental Congress realized, well, we need a government in place. And so that's when they drafted the Articles of Confederation. The Articles were actually influenced by state governments that were already in place. As we declared independence, states started to create their own governments. And what they did as they created those was they based most of the political power of state governments in the legislative branch. Now, it's the legislative branch that makes the laws, and the legislatures were comprised of representatives from the people. The states saw this as an opportunity to get more power to the people. And that was the goal in democracy. And so when the Articles of Confederation were being created, since most of the men in the Continental Congress had played a role in creating their state governments, they brought those same ideas to the national government. And so under the Articles, we had a single branch government, and it was a legislative body that would govern our country. You have to remember, we had been under the thumb of a monarchy for our entire existence, and that's what we are trying to break free from. So the thought of having a powerful executive branch concerned many of the founders. They wanted the people to have most of the power. So state legislatures were comprised of representatives voted on by the people. We're going to do the same with the national government. And not only that, every state had equal power under the Articles of Confederation. When it came to trying to suppress anybody from having too much power, one of the tools of the Articles was to give veto power to every single state. So if one state opposed any changes to the Articles, they could veto it. But even if none of the states vetoed changes to the Articles of Confederation, you still needed 9 of the 13 states to agree to it. It's what we call a super majority, which is very difficult to achieve. So it was nearly impossible to change the structure of the Articles of Confederation. And soon, under this government, the country started to experience some problems. One of the biggest problems they dealt with was westward migration. Americans were just spreading west all willy-nilly, and there was really no rhyme or reason to how they were doing it. And then as they spread west, we had to deal with the problems of the Native Americans and encroaching on their lands. So this is when the Articles government is going to pass the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, probably the one single piece of legislation that you can consider an absolute success. The Northwest Ordinance had several key components that went a long way to help the growth of America going forward. Number one, it set some guidelines to protect private property. A lot of people were heading west and just squatting wherever they wanted to. So now there were private property rights included in the ordinance. There was also a provision for public education. But probably the two most important components of the Northwest Ordinance was number one, it laid out an orderly plan to apply for statehood, including population requirements as well as constitutional requirements. And then the big one, it outlawed slavery in that entire designated Northwest Territory. So while the Articles of Confederation lacked a lot, it did do a few positive things for our country. But we realized that it wasn't the government we needed. And we realized that during an episode called Shays' Rebellion, which occurred in western Massachusetts. And what Shays' Rebellion showed us was that the Articles were absolutely flawed. Coming out of the American Revolution, there was some economic hard times for a lot of people. And many men who had been fighting in the war are coming home to their farms to property tax bills that they can't pay because they've been out fighting this war. These farmers are actually going to petition the government for relief, saying, hey, we were out fighting this war, and so we can't pay our taxes yet. But if you can give us some relief, we'll get caught up. To which the government said, no. A man by the name of Daniel Shays is going to organize about 1,000 farmers in western Massachusetts, and they are going to march to the Massachusetts Armory to try to arm themselves in order to protect their property. Now, this rebellion is going to be put down by the Massachusetts militia, but during this time period, the Massachusetts state government is going to reach out to the national governments for help, saying, hey, send an army, send some backup, we need some help. And the national government had to say no, because they had nothing to send. One of the problems of the Articles of Confederation was that it didn't have the power to tax. And without tax dollars, his government is pretty much ineffective. And so what we realized through Shays' Rebellion was that the Articles of Confederation, though it got us through the war, it's not going to last because it's just entirely too weak. And then the question comes, well, what do we do now? And that's going to be answered later on in another video. But until then, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.